All right, what's up, GIGA gamers? Welcome to the Strat Chat. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to be doing a draft special. The Spectacular's in 2 weeks, but I'm joined with PM Pierce. We're going to be looking at value-based drafting, what teams are going to be looking at, hopefully give you a little bit of insight. Podrick, how you doing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We're going to be joined. If you remember, a guy from last year came. He was a Philadelphia Eagles fan. He's coming back to watch. He's got some
Nice,
insight. Yeah,
nice.
he says Howie Roseman's never drafting a linebacker, so keep that in mind, Mister Eagles.
Didn't have one planned, but I don't know. There's a couple of good ones. Could be there in the middle of the first round.
There, yes, and I think one of the things that I noticed when I look at the whole draft, right, there's a very good balance, right? It's not like last year where it was like a pile of ridiculously good wide receivers and quarterbacks, and then like smatterings of everything else. This is mostly a lot of edge players, but a fairly good balance of every position going all the way down, except for the ball handlers, quarterbacks and running backs. Not nearly as much as past years, so we'll see how that pans out. But it should make for interesting roster development for sure.
I mean, they say about it not being obvious who the first pick is. Like maybe that means just not that strong at the top. We took, but so everybody's in the conversation to be at the top of the draft. So maybe that means all those positions are strong, but maybe it just means, you know, it's not the strongest draft
Yeah,
overall.
it could be. And you know what's interesting is last year I remember thinking to myself, like, what teams want more running backs? Like, it felt like everyone had the roster, they had guys 2 and 3 deep that were good, and they didn't really need it. So it's actually it has aptly timed itself where not having a deep running back class, you're like, sweet. I think everyone's just fine with that.
Everyone's already said, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know about the Eagles. Miles Sanders. Are they really gonna give him
yeah,
a
but
contract?
but
Yeah, Gainwell
they love Gainwell. They
could
like
be an
Boston
early down
Scott.
running back. He's good.
Yeah,
Eagles have always wanted to have we'll get to the Eagles, of course, but
yeah.
wanted to have multiple running backs back to um, what's his name from that's at Jacksonville now, in the past years, they've always kind of had a few, but so they might be a player for running back a little bit later on, but not in the first round.
Not in the first round. All right. Without further ado, you ready to roll?
Me.
All right, the things that we're looking at consensus, basically 6 different mocks plus our own insights, and taking the middle 4 values. We're dropping the highest, dropping the lowest to really get a value chart of where these players should fall more or less, and then seeing like different tier divisions, right? The red tier, top 10 players, and then next 10 in the yellow greens, and then borderline first round picks in the blue, but we'll see what comes out from it. So at the top, Jacksonville Jaguars, new regime, new everything. They got to settle up. I think this is the year that they didn't really want this first round pick because the guy they want is not really here. So I'm fishing around and asking for trade partners. I don't want to go down too far because I still want my guy, but I bet Detroit has a guy that they like.
Yeah, you read my mind, I guess. I think there's this whole connection of Aiden Hutchinson being a Michigan guy. They're trying to kind of build from the ground up. He's a player that works hard, and he's a trenches player, foundational piece. Um, you know, I think Detroit's sure seems like they're hoping Jacksonville goes another direction. Um, but yeah, I think there's definitely no, I haven't heard anybody talk about this possibility, but if Jacksonville doesn't necessarily love him at number one overall, and he's got a lot of good traits, but is he really a difference maker like off of the edge? Is he really going to get around the edge and get 15 sacks in a season, or is he more of kind of somebody who rotates to the inside on passing downs and things like so maybe Jacksonville doesn't really want to take him number one overall. So I think Detroit might consider putting out the feelers, see if maybe they could make a swap there. Um,
Well, I'm
I'm pretty
calling
sure they
up
get that
Dan
guy.
Campbell, and I'm saying you want a lunch pail guy. You want a guy that's going to come to work. The rumor Harbaugh says that this guy changed the dynamic in his locker room, right? And he's a born leader. I'm asking you for a one. Your second pick overall. I want that, and I want your third round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's far from every time you see these trades at the top of the draft, it's like, oh my god, like they paid, like they gave that, like a so much to move up a spot or two spots. I don't know, but yeah, third round pick. It's beginning of the third round for Detroit. So you're still talking about middle of day two. You get starting, somebody who can really come in and contribute right away. But for Detroit, I think getting that piece, that player, that you can really, you know, kind of be not face of the franchise or whatever, but somebody that the fan base will be really excited to have, and feel like you're kind of building on the line on both sides of the football. Yeah, I think Detroit would be that seems like a very reasonable price to pay just to kind of make sure, because Jacksonville could definitely take him. So if you're Detroit, like just kind of pay that extra price and make sure you get your guy. So
So
yeah, I think
so
that's a
you're
good
in.
idea.
Dan Campbell. If Dan Campbell fields the call, then I think I know they're in. He's like, I want my guy. I want this guy. So you're in.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. And you're picking Hutchinson number one?
Taking Aiden Hutchinson, yes.
Okay. All right. So it's back on me, number two. The guy that I want, anyways, is not one of the edge linemen. I want Iquanu. And the reason that I want him specifically, even though Evan Neal is a freak athlete, we already have three tackles on the roster, right? And Iquanu could be a tackle and might be, but he definitely can already be a guard. So this year I get to slot him in, and now I'll get to boast what might be one of the best offensive lines in all of football if I do this, and that should give Lawrence all the time that he needs to complete and make the plays. So my plan is to take Iquanu. I'm going to put him at guard. I'm going to have him try to compete with Walker Little because either we have to get rid of Cam Robinson next year or we don't, whatever happens. But I want to make sure that I'm solidified on this position for the next 5 years easily. I'm taking, do we call it Ike? But Iquanu.
I think they say Icky, but
Icky.
but Ikem Iquanu is I think what you say.
Ikem
How you
Iquanu.
say it.
All right. Houston's up. So if I'm Houston, I'm kind of upset because this is exactly who I wanted for the same reason. Laramie Tunsil, rumor is that he might be on his way out, and he's overpriced as it is. I could be looking for the same sort of player that I can play at guard first and tackle next. When I'm looking at Houston, Davis Mills is actually. I think Houston knows that he's better than everyone else thinks. I remember this is one of the few pro day workouts that I watched where I just thought like, man, this guy could actually be really good. And the rumors on him last year were that he was not very athletic, but then he went and outran all of his receivers at pro day. Like this guy has a lot of tools. I want to make sure that he stays healthy. I'm actually going to go Evan Neal. And same thing if Tunsil is on his way out, I want to have that replacement in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think Houston has all kinds of needs, and take the foundational offensive tackle. Especially like you said, Laramie Tunsil. I think they have him one more year, and yeah, no, I mean, build around Davis Mills. I totally agree with using your premium pick.
And they just re-signed Brandon Cooks, so I think they're more or less happy with some of the offensive weapons that they have. And I'll go from there. All right, so we go to the Jets.
If I
Oh,
can
go ahead.
say, just I want to say, if I'm the Texans, you talk about, Lovie Smith being one of those kind of people that was involved with the Tampa 2 defense and Monty Kiffin and, all of those defenses, I think, had a great pass rush with four rushers. So, if I'm Houston, I'm definitely considering one of these elite pass rushers as well. But like I said, they have needs. You want to support the quarterback, so I like the pick.
I think they couldn't. I don't think they go wrong with any of the guys available here. There's all that the question surrounding Thibodeau. I read it as supreme confidence, like almost delusional confidence, the way that Reggie Miller used to have. and all the issues that they're bringing up is like red flags. Like the reason that he went to Oregon was because Nike, and he wanted like ins there, like there's just a lot of things that they call negatives. But I think at the highest level, if you're going to be that alpha amongst alphas, I think that actually might strike true
Sure.
for them. Which is why with the Jets pick, this is where I'm going. Kayvon Thibodeau. I think they also, I mean, they have a ton of needs everywhere, but I think Thibodeau is going to give them the most presence there. They lost some defensive players. I think there's a lot of players that they're looking to fill in for. They could, I think there's a world where they might have taken Kyle Hamilton a little bit later, with the departure of Marcus May, but it's right here. I think Thibodeau. They're just hoping that this guy is a freak that can take over games, and help them not have to play from a deficit all the time, right? Like actually create some disruption, create some turnovers. All right, you're up. New York Giants. Their offensive line is the worst in football.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I'm looking at you know, talk about the tiers, jumping up tiers. So, for I definitely like Charles Cross with the Giants. Thinking about, this is a guy that came from a highly pass-heavy offense in college, and you think about Brian Dable coming over from the Bills and how they really kind of put the ball in Josh Allen's hand all the time, every play all the time, and like, what's their plan? Do they expect to do that with Daniel Jones? Obviously, Daniel Jones turns the ball over, isn't the playmaker that Josh Allen is. But so if he keeps the system more or less as he had it in Buffalo, it's like having that offensive lineman with all the pass blocking chops makes a world of sense. I don't know if I'm jumping too high of a tier here. I mean, I think if it has to be between Kyle Hamilton and Gardner, I mean, I don't know. I feel like trying to remember their starting quarterback situation, but I know that the Giants, could definitely. I don't know. I mean, I I want to say the offensive lineman here, the Giants offensive line, like they need to address it you know for time. I think they're trying to give Daniel Jones another chance. They have Andrew Thomas at tackle, but they really haven't been able to protect, and so yeah. I mean, I would say Charles Cross.
So
There we go.
if you think that it's maybe too early for Cross, are you looking to try to trade out? Are you trying to um,
Yeah,
extract
for
some
sure.
value? Maybe there's not many other teams that want to jump into this spot, kind of knowing that about the Giants.
I tend to think that the first two cornerbacks, Ahmad Gardner and Derek Stingley, I think might go higher than. I mean, obviously, people already have them marked pretty high, but I think those two guys are, Stingley. Obviously, there's the questions about number of games played in the last couple of years, and did he quit on his team, and but I don't know if. The type of player that those guys can both be, and then relative drop off at the position. I think there's depth on the perimeter, but I think those are definitely the I don't know premier. I don't know. I would not be surprised if somebody trades up for one of those players. So that, there could be a market. Um, so yeah, I mean, if somebody's knocking on the door and says, you know, uh, especially, I mean, we're looking at so
All right. Well,
somebody.
you know what? Like if I'm the Jets here with the 10th pick, there's two cornerbacks and a safety, and I'm happy to get any of them, right? But there's a chance that they don't because like you said, Stingley, Gardner, and then Hamilton's one of the highest graded players in the whole draft. The Maybe they don't fall to me here, right? And so there could be a New York a subway market here where I could move up as the Jets. Will you entertain an offer from the Jets to go down 6 spots?
Yes, I mean, I wonder. The six spots we're talking about going down to 10. Charles Cross, is a player that could definitely be available at that point, and there's the directions they could go. I wonder. I mean, you talk about like the Eagles trading away a first round pick. Part of the logic there was that you have these big committed salaries that will kind of all inflate at the same time. You know, so I wonder, if the Jets want to really pick 4 and 5 in the same draft as far as salary cap purposes. But yeah, I mean that's your franchise though.
Well, I'm gonna offer you the 10th overall pick and next year's second round pick.
Second round pick to move from 10 to 5. I don't think that would cut it.
Okay.
Is that a?
Yeah, basically,
I
I,
think
I would need to price myself into an okay spot. It's fine. I'll let you take who you want to take.
10 to 5, 400 points. Second round pick this year. Yeah, I mean, I know that Charles Cross is not. I think there's mixed opinions about him as a player. Like, will he be able to? He doesn't have much experience run blocking, but I think he has the traits and to potentially be a tackle worth, a top 5 pick. So I mean, it's tough, but I really think that the Giants, have really kind of kicked the can down the road, and I mean, that offensive lineman, I think, is a building block piece. I don't know. I think I would take the player instead of the second round pick in this particular case.
Okay. This is the first of a string of picks for you. So you've got Carolina next.
Yeah, so it's funny. I was actually thinking of I like Cross at Carolina. Everybody talks about the quarterback, because obviously they've been trying Deshaun Watson or they clearly aren't happy with the quarterback situation. And then there's the I forget the head coach's name, but obviously needs to win now if he wants to keep the job. So I was thinking about what the conversation would look like between coach, general manager, owner. Because honestly, Carolina, their defense last year I was actually really excited for. I thought they were going to be good, but then the offense couldn't stay on the field. They had 3 and out like all the time, and I think the big weakness for Carolina's offense is the offensive line. So I think Carolina would be really hoping for an offensive lineman to fall to them. In this case, the top 3 are all gone. So Carolina, given that, I think the quarterback. I think that you have Malik Willis, you have Kenny Pickett. So Malik Willis, I feel like if they tell, what's his name, the coach, they tell him it's like you have to pick a quarterback here, right? He might
Matt
not
Rule.
want to because Matt Rule, yeah. Then I think he would take Kenny Pickett, and the reason is because he has the more experience as a starter. He had recruited him, at Temple, and so they have a history, and I think he would be a player. Honestly, ideally for Carolina, I think they're waiting to the second round to get, hopefully, a quarterback that falls the Matt Corral or.
Right. It does seem like a huge reach, especially if they're really one of the only teams that's going here. Maybe Seattle's. There's also quarterbacks still available, right? Like Jimmy G still doesn't have a home, and so the question is always going to be for all of these teams, like how much are you willing to like sit and wait with the players you have, and like what's on the free agent market. There's no huge rush to get these quarterbacks. It's unfortunate
I
for.
agree.
Yeah, so
I think at this point the value is probably going to be at Ahmad Gardner. I know that I think Stephon Gilmore is still a free agent. I think at this point they have some players in the secondary, but I mean, yeah, I hate I just don't know that they're going to take a quarterback with this pick. I think obviously they would consider moving back if somebody was, but is anybody really that excited about year's quarterback class that they're going to put together that kind of package? Yeah, I think Ahmad Gardner is a fair pick here.
right. Okay. Ahmad Gardner is down. New York Giants on the clock again.
So the Giants, I think at this point you see Kyle Hamilton sitting there. They addressed the offense on the first half. I think you have what's his name, Martindale came in as defensive coordinator, and with the 3 years for the Ravens, with the Ravens, I feel like they were known for kind of blitz packages. I think Kyle Hamilton really gives you this ability to kind of stack the box and still play coverage. Talk about last year, the for the Cowboys, Micah Parsons. What he brought to them in terms of the offense doesn't know what's coming because he can set up a blitz package or a four-man rush, or you can drop into coverage. You don't know what they're going to do with him there. And I think Kyle Hamilton, obviously different type of player, I think, who's more rangy in coverage. But I think if there's a player in this year's draft that kind of gives the defense the ability to disguise what they're doing, I think it's Kyle Hamilton. And I think first year defensive coordinator with the Giants, with Martindale, I think give him that chess piece in this position.
For sure, yeah. Chess piece is definitely the way to describe it. Like if he becomes that wild card on defense, that you can, again, like you said, disguise. All right, Atlanta is in. Calvin Ridley's gone for the season. They traded away Matt Ryan. They've got Marcus Mariota. Is this a position where you try to develop Malik Willis under him? Is that a possibility, or what are you thinking?
I was really thinking that Jimmy G was going to be the quarterback in Atlanta. Just thinking back to the Titans bringing in Ryan Tannehill, bringing in a veteran quarterback with some mobility, who maybe still has some upside. Obviously, that's still kind of on the table. But as far as a rookie quarterback, I'm kind of leaning towards Kenny Pickett actually at this point. I know they talk about Malik Willis because being local from Georgia, from the Atlanta area, but I feel like Kenny Pickett gives them, that's a division, with the Saints. Drew Brees is gone. Carolina is obviously looking for a quarterback, and then the Bucks. I mean, how many, Tom Brady's playing, whatever. I'm not gonna comment about or make projections about what he's gonna do. Who knows what Tom Brady's gonna do? But that's a division that pretty soon, Atlanta could have a chance to in the division. It's pretty wide open if you look a couple of years down the road. So I think Kenny Pickett gives them that quarterback that I think they'll compete a little bit sooner, or might kind of be able to get backdoor into the playoffs this year, next year, with somebody with a little more experience as a starter.
All right, Kenny Pickett, and it with the success of Joe Burrow, there's a lot of similarities with Pickett. It's like had more time to playing that extra year, but then getting the first chance to really get a full year of starting, and then just blowing everyone out of the water. Like there's a lot of similarities to the Burrow narrative. So I can see a lot of people wanting that. There's a chance that Pickett's ready to play right away. So that'd be a fantastic situation for them. And if they have to build, it sucks about Ridley. Kind of threw a wrench in their plans, and suddenly now they've only got they've got probably the worst running back room in the league. They've got no wide receivers to speak of, and it might be kind of tough, but getting
Daryl Davis still there, forgetting him in both of those.
Yeah, that's true. He can be both, but he is, he's a year older too. That guy is explosive, and he had his best year. Congrats to him, but it'll be interesting to see. All right, next is Seattle Seahawks with the 9th pick.
So the moment Seattle traded Russell Wilson to the Broncos, I was like, oh man, number 9, that's right about where the quarterbacks might be. It made a lot of sense that they would feel more comfortable making that trade, given that they might be able to develop a quarterback. And Pete Carroll has, I think, security. Nick Willis, I think has the higher upside for sure than Kenny Pickett. He's a player that they could really. I don't know, long term, got power. I don't want to say powerhouse, but I think that they can really compete in that division. I think Willis gives you a big arm quarterback if they do keep DK Metcalf. I know there's talk about a couple of these receivers from that same year, AJ Brown, Terry McLaurin, Devo Samuel. Is one of them going to move? It seems like DK Metcalf makes the most sense.
Hmm.
To not have to pay the kind of contract they do command next year. But if they do hold on to him, I think Malik Willis to DK Metcalf, seems like a pretty good starting point for a dynamic offense.
Yeah, some track stars, like unreal. All right, cool. I love it. I'm super. This is one of my favorite players to watch because, why not? Why can't he be great? There's no reason that I can see that he can't be the quarterback that they need him to be. He's got a lot of Lamar Jackson in him. Um, Maybe not quite as fast. Maybe they're not at the top end, but like the other physical traits are there. I don't know. It could be cool. All right, New York Jets. Back on me. I'm pretty happy that Stingley is still around. I want to keep on developing the defense. I'm slamming this pick. I'm going to assume that Stingley heard that he could have been the first overall pick if he were eligible in 2020, and that's the entire reason why he didn't risk himself the next 2 years, as much, and just kind of played safer, quit on his team, if you want to say that. But it's like if it might have just been a business decision, right? And the talent is there. What he's put on tape is absolutely incredible. The ceiling seems like it could be higher than Sauce Gardner, even though like Gardner felt like he was running the routes for the receivers a lot of the time. He was just like jogging. It was like, yeah, I can keep up with you. Like, there's nothing here, but Stingley could be that like complete, Revis Island type of player, and the Jets would love to bring back a marketable, island cornerback to the team. Which the last time they had success was with that Rex Ryan defense and Revis Island. So I think they slam lock Stingley here and move on. Washington.
Yeah, totally agree. I think
Oh, go ahead.
Stingley, especially at 10. You talk about taking a chance on him like top five. Maybe he's the best player in the draft. But at the point, you get to pick 10, and it's like compared to the upside of the other players that are there. I think Stingley is a great pick for the Jets at 10.
Yep. All right, here we go. Washington.
So
The
Washington.
Commanders. Oh man, the garbage pail or the dumpster fire that is the Dan Snyder regime. Which may. What do you think? All right, little aside. Is this guy going to be forced to sell his team, and does that influence their draft?
So I haven't heard the latest, but everything that's happened so far, seems like no, like he can get away with like everything and anything and everything, get away with. But it almost seems like, that, yeah, there's nothing that could happen that he would lose his position. But I know it's been in the news cycle recently. Maybe they'll cave to the pressure. Obviously, he's super unpopular and has been for I don't know.
Well,
10,
I
15
remember mocking this guy 15 years ago. I'd be like, "Oh, Dan Snyder, he's just gonna throw millions of dollars at shiny players to do whatever. Like he's taking control of the teams from his coaches and just like run. It felt like he was running it, spending it into the ground every single time. There's nothing I've ever heard popular about this guy. But like as far as getting away with it from a legal perspective, I don't know. I can't speak about it. But if I'm one of the other owners in the league and I'm saying, you don't think we could have fucking done this? You asshole. Like, we could have done this. We could have been skimming. We could have done whatever else. Like, F you, what the hell are you doing? Who do you think you are? I think if there's pressure to leave, it's not going to come from the office, so to speak. It's going to come from the owners and saying, like, get out. Like, we don't want this image in our league. This is a negative thing. You reflect badly on me, right? If
enough precedent from their perspective, though. It's like if you're an owner of an NFL team, and the general image is that you can't get ousted from that position.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, I guess so.
Especially think about the Texans, and you think about I don't know. So I don't know, but yeah, maybe. And I think the league would be better for it. Maybe Jeff Bezos would come in by the
Yeah, maybe.
Commanders.
Could happen.
But you talk about dumpster fire. I was thinking about, like, for an aside, think about the Jets and the Jaguars. Both I think brought in a lot of free agents. This off season.
Hmm.
And to the Jets, I just loved it. I thought they brought in players that could be building blocks for a long period of time. Jaguars, I was like, they're kind of guys that like give them an excuse not to draft that position this year. I feel like those franchises are kind of headed in opposite directions. I mean, not that there's anywhere downward to go for Jacksonville, but
Right.
anyway, Washington is one of those teams. I think that heard somebody recently saying, "Oh yeah, like if they just get this piece or that piece, Carson Wentz could have a career year, and they could even win the division." I'm like, I'm not sure that I buy that Washington is going to be very good anytime soon.
Well, they also lost Brandon Sheriff, who might be the best player at his position in football, and Landon Collins, who, not 3 years ago was the best position, was the best safety in the league. So, like those guys are like, get me out. They don't see it. They want to go win somewhere. They don't think Washington's the place.
For
But
sure.
anyways, what are you looking at for a pick?
So I think the best football that Carson Wentz played last year when he played, so he had some exciting moments with the Colts, and I think really kind of when he was pushing the ball down the field, made some exciting plays, throwing to receivers, giving them a chance on the ball. Honestly, I think Drake London makes a lot of sense to pair with Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin being kind of a savvy route runner, somebody who can get open down the field and track the ball down the field. Drake London, obviously track it as well, but is wins the jump ball. He's the power forward. He's the, throw the touchdown pass from the 30-yard line. So I think it gives them excitement. Definitely sell tickets, and player that was really kind of, I think a lot of people thought was the best receiver in college football up until his injury this past year. So I think that's the direction they're likely to go in.
Yeah, and especially, let me see. Drake London had the broken ankle, right? And it was Jameson Williams is the torn ACL, right?
The latter, yes, I forget who somebody ruptured their Achilles. I think that's a Jabo from Michigan, the pass rusher. So yeah, I think we have that right. I wasn't sure about which the injury was for
Gotcha.
London. I
Gotcha.
know
All
that
right.
he didn't run very well either at the combine or his pro day.
And
But yeah,
and his
he has a
tape, he wasn't fast in his tape ever. He was just more like a box out, almost like the way you want a tight end to run their routes. But his biggest success came from the slot, and now that gives you options, right? You can move Terry around, you can move London around. They probably get a lot of ideas that way. All right, Minnesota cornerback, guard, linebacker, wide receiver, edge.
I mean, got it. I mean, so the top of the chart for us is Garrett Wilson. Um, I like Garrett Wilson. I think I like the way he sets up defenders for the stiff arm. Like he'll kind of it's almost like he's doing judo or aikido, where like he gives a stutter step just to get them off balance, and then finishes with like a tough stiff arm. He's a tough runner,
Mm-hmm.
and he also catches the ball well and catches it in traffic. Um, I just feel like uh, you talk about Jameson Williams being probably, if he didn't get hurt, like far and away like wide receiver one of this draft. Or, I think that's how I feel. Garrett Wilson I think he just doesn't track the ball down the field. He doesn't get open down the field. He doesn't even I think of Kyle Hamilton. One of the things that was amazing watching him was when he's covering a receiver deep down the field and they're in full stride and the receiver stops and changes direction. He can make a fluid change of direction. It's like really good, down the field while running at full speed. I just don't see that in Garrett Wilson. So, like, I'm not sure that that's the direction I would go for Minnesota. Trayvon Walker is intriguing here. I know that they don't necessarily have edge at the top of their needs, but you can never have enough. And he's a player that you know depending on he's more measurables than production at this point. But honestly, being part of that Georgia defense, it's so hard to tell when you have so many star players on the same defense. Who's
Right.
getting double teamed and freeing up whom to get the stats. Um,
And there's some rumors. So there are rumors that Georgia used Walker the most flexibly, which is why his production wasn't there, as far as like hits and whatnot. But they dropped him into coverage, and he was athletic enough to do it. I've heard some rumors that have him going number one overall, and that he is just that good of an athlete that teams might be willing to bet on the upside, whereas like Aiden Hutchinson is not going to be Bosa. He's not going to be Joey Bosa. He's going to be really good, but he's not going to be that good, and he just never can or will be. But this guy might.
So I will say that if I'm sitting here as Minnesota and I'm going to take a pass rusher, me personally, I'm probably taking Jermaine Johnson and leaving Trayvon Walker on the board. Um, but I don't, given we're talking about like what they're likely to do, and using our hive mind, I think we'll make Trayvon Walker the pick. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Jermaine Johnson goes 12 or even higher. The player that I think didn't had to go to junior college. His grades weren't there. He was a stud player there. Goes to Georgia for a year, doesn't work out. Transfers and then an ACC Defensive Player of the Year. I think he's just somebody who's bet on himself multiple times. Somebody who's kept kind of you know just positive outlook and worked hard and managed to put himself in a position that it would be crazy to say that he'd be where he is now. To look at him, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So Jermaine Johnson is a player that I think to keep an eye on being drafted a little bit higher than.
Well, it sounds like you want him, and I mean, he's sitting here. There's only one. If that's the guy you want, don't say that.
But Jermaine Johnson the second.
I'm taking it. All right, Jermaine
Yeah.
Johnson.
Strikes me as it's funny because I mean Houston, is there too. Could also take him, but I think of Baltimore and like how Terrell Suggs fell to Baltimore one year, and Vince Wilfork fell to the Patriots. Like Jermaine Johnson falling to Baltimore just seems like something that just would happen.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah, right. Just could easily do it. Well, in part, I love the defensive players that are left. They're like I absolutely love these guys. So I think Devin Lloyd, N'Kobe Dean, Trayvon Walker, even Karlaftis, these guys. There's a lot of good potential, and starting potential on all these guys. If I'm Houston, the issue is like my biggest needs are inside, right? But I got Evan Neal. I've got the inside line. Maybe we can like move pieces around if we need to. I'm okay with there, but from a defensive perspective and the fact that we are rebuilding, I think this is the perfect time to take Trevon Walker because if there's a chance that he becomes this absolute freak athlete, Bruce Smith style, just right. I think you take that shot at 13. I think there's a decent chance of it happening. There's no rush for it, but no matter how you cut it, like this guy gives the maybe one of the biggest upsides in the whole draft. So for a team in rebuild mode, I'm very happy taking Trevon Walker.
Oh well, Houston, serious upgrade on what they look like getting off the bus between Evan Neal and Trayvon Walker.
That's
these,
true.
these are guys that'll put some scare to
That's
the other team
true.
for sure.
How good is this team coming off the bus? Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we talked about Terrell Suggs falling to the Ravens. Linebacker and edge probably the number one issue for them, and Devin Lloyd's sitting right here. So I think this is a slam dunk pick for them. Not even going to think twice. I just think it's on brand. This is like linebacker. I don't want to call it linebacker university, but like basically it just seems like they constantly churn, great linebackers through this program. And we'll see what they can develop with him. But we got Devin Lloyd going at 14. All right, Philadelphia Eagles.
So it's a tough choice here. I mean, the pick again in what, three picks. I think I mentioned what I said about Garrett Wilson. He does actually, I think, make sense for the Eagles. You talk about I was talking about his ability to catch in traffic and run after the catch, and they want to throw a lot of balls. You look at how the Eagles looked at the beginning of last year before they went to the kind of crazy run heavy approach. It was a lot of wide receiver screens, a lot of quick passes, passes behind the line of scrimmage. So I think he's a receiver that fits in, and they really don't have any depth. And Quez Watkins, and I mentioned first, but obviously Devontae Smith being the first name on the depth chart.
Well, this
Those two
this will
guys are
be
looking promising.
3 straight years of number one picks on wide receivers. Is that?
Yeah, it's like the Lions of the early 2000s, I think.
Yeah, that's got to
Charles
factor
Rogers
in.
and Mike Williams. Yeah, 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 and it's a fan base that will definitely pan them if if it doesn't work out. So that's a consideration. The other thing I'm really looking at is Jordan Davis. I think is not at the top of their need list. I think Javon Hargrave really kind of came on and is a player that they can build around in the
It's
future.
it's true, but that line 4 years ago might have been the best defensive unit in football, but they're getting old, right? Like rumors are Fletcher Cox is they were trying to dump him last year, even potentially.
I was
So
thinking Corey Simon, but yeah, Fletcher Cox. Yeah, yeah, for sure. A lot of I think the fans are question the amount that they spent on him for the 1 year deal to keep him around, and they have so yeah to have Jordan Davis there gives them a really nice rotation. Get a lot of players coming in, and also I think there's like I said you don't have a Jamar. If there's a Jamar Chase, not play style wise, but somebody who can be really the person that you focus your offense around. Single player that is worthy of that. I think it's Jameson Williams. Obviously, as the injury won't be available right away. But beyond that, there isn't a receiver like that. But there's a lot of good receivers towards that are worthy of for example, possibly their next pick or a pick in their second round. So I feel like Garrett Wilson would be a fit, but I think they hold off here to see if they can get a receiver there like a little bit later in the draft, if not later in the first round, and go with Jordan Davis, solidify that run defense, which wasn't great.
and I mean, yeah, one of the strengths they might still have, they weren't awful getting after the quarterback. And certainly 2 years ago, they were the best at getting after the quarterback. So if any amount of that comes back, and the read on Davis is you can't run at that guy. That this guy has the same rep that Khalil Mack had coming out of college 6 years ago. It's just like you can't run on this side of the line. You just can't. You cannot go to the offensive right because Khalil Mack's just sitting there. And he's going to stand up your defender, shed him, and get the block. And all the rumors are Jordan Davis will take two defenders, plug that gap, and still be able to move and make side to side plays, being as athletic as you need him to be. So I
I
love
think
that
the
pick.
Eagles obviously have a need at linebacker. We talked about they're not going to take a linebacker in the first round, but to have that guy clog the middle really does kind of take a little bit of heavy lifting off of the shoulders of the linebackers to have to take on guards in the running game. For example, if you're getting a double team on the defensive tackle, it really frees them up to be able to kind of play downhill.
Well, for sure, one of the things that I'm looking at for the Eagles or thinking about if they're taking Jordan Davis here, suddenly a player like N'Kobe Dean might fit a lot more, where he's like that rangy side to side Deion Jones, Telvin Smith type of linebacker that can play. If you've got Jordan Davis plugging, literally just stop gapping right there, then maybe N'Kobe Dean becomes
It could be,
a lot
yeah.
more interesting. So we'll see from there. All right, if I'm New
We shall see.
Orleans, New Orleans, we're looking at tackle, wide receiver, safety, secondary. There's basically no way that any of the tackles are falling. I mean, maybe in a world where Charles Cross doesn't go to the Giants or to Carolina, but like I don't think it's ever happening. There's probably no world where tackle ever drops to this part. I do think that they're going to look for weapons, especially down the field weapons for Jameis Winston. I agree with everything you've said about Garrett Wilson and Jameson Williams. And honestly, the ACL injury is not what it used to be. It is now 9 months, and you expect a full recovery, right? You expect to be ready. I think they can expect to have him in September, and definitely by October.
Now,
So,
before you go any further, I just want to point out that New Orleans is an NFC team, but
oh, that's right. It's on you.
you continue.
That's true. All
Well,
right. Well,
I mean,
anyways,
finish. Yeah,
I'm
no,
just gonna say that
take
I
it away.
guess that's where I'm thinking as AFC teams, what you guys might be looking at. But anyways, it's on you.
So I couldn't agree more. I think there's a lot of talk about New Orleans thinks they're closer to competing than maybe the public thinks, and maybe you won't be ready for the start of the season, but ready for a playoff run. And I think they I think they like Jameis Winston as a quarterback that could get them there, not somebody necessarily to build your franchise around. The other player I'd be looking at is Trevor Penning. You talk about they traded with the Eagles, they jumped in front of the Chargers. Chargers, have needs at wide receiver and tackle, and so Trevor Penning I think is maybe the last first round grade offensive tackle. He played at a small school, so there's this big question about how do you evaluate somebody. But he was somebody who was athletic, but also just like a bully, somebody that one scouting report I read was talking about he just really has a hatred in his heart for whoever he lines up against, or I forget how they said it. But I think Jameson Williams is too big of a value. Could be that type of player. They have Michael Thomas. There's been the whole issue. It's like, what's his injury situation? How's his relationship to the team? I think he has a contract coming up. You need a playmaker, a wide receiver. They don't have much, so I think Jameson Williams makes a lot of sense as the pick there.
I agree. All right. Well, it is interesting to see. Garrett Wilson is that tier higher. Who's going to end up pulling for him? The Chargers could pull that trigger. They're also looking at tackle. They're probably upset that Penning's gone. When they're looking at linebackers, I mean, I love Nakobe Dean. I love this guy's play style, 100%. I think this is a really interesting spot. There's a handful of receivers around this bend right now. I feel like I think I'm taking Nakobe Dean. I think I'm happy with this. I want to round out this defense. We've got playmakers on every single level, so having this like other flashy player that can make plays on different levels, I think is what will round them out the best. All right. It's on Philadelphia again. No more Nakobe Dean combo with Jordan Davis.
Well, I mean, I think I actually kind of like Davion Taylor, the young linebacker that the Eagles have. I mean, obviously he hasn't done much, but and he's kind of more traits, kind of projecting what he could do. But I think he's a player that could actually be somebody that in a rotation, not somebody that you necessarily make the centerpiece of your defense like Nakobe Dean could be. But they also brought in what's his name, the linebacker from the Chargers, undersized, converted safety. I mean, so they did do a little bit of work at linebacker. So here we are with Garrett Wilson again, and I don't want to be the captain of a Garrett Wilson fall, watch him go and be rookie of the year or something. And like I said, I think he has a lot of things to like about his game. But sorry, I was not.
Oh, all right.
I think actually, I think honestly, if the Eagles come out of the first round and leave a player like Trent McDuffie on the board, I don't think that would sit well with the fan base. I think they have Darius Slay on the outside and they have Avonte Maddox in the slot. But it's a fourth round pick from last year is penciled in to be the starter, somebody who got very minimal snaps for them last year. Trent McDuffie, some people think, is up there with the top cornerbacks in this draft. So I think to get a first round caliber cornerback at a position that's really a significant need, and their defense is I think not that far from coming together to be a really solid defense. So I just think that it's a really good fit and value. So yeah, I think Trent McDuffie is where we'll go with that pick.
I love it. I actually love how these things are shaping out together. As we get back to New Orleans, when they did trade back into the first round, like you said, they think they're closer to winning than maybe other people do, and that's really what it was. It's like we don't need as much value down the road. We've got a good roster with contracts manifesting. Like we can get extra players that can help us win right now. So who is that going to be at 19?
So, they just lost Teron Armstead in free agency. And, I think they're a team that has built in the trenches, drafted the trenches. They traded up a couple years ago for Marcus Davenport, on the defensive line. And, I think that uh, I would be surprised if they left Trevor Penning on the board in this situation. Um, so I think, yeah, that's the direction I'll go. I think in terms of a term building, you know, they're they believe they're close to winning, but I think you can never have too many offensive linemen, and especially for building for the long term. I think you get the blue chip offensive lineman.
Yeah, for sure. And what's his face on the right side was all pro twice, right? Ramchek. No, Ramchek?
No, check was right, right.
I have to look it up.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
See.
you're right.
Right tag. Yeah, Ramchek. Ryan Ramchek.
There. Remember,
So
I think I was listening to our mock draft from last year, and you were talking about, you know, it's like, I think it was from that basically you draft an offensive lineman. It doesn't mean you need to necessarily replace somebody at a particular position. It just means that your fifth best offensive lineman then doesn't have to start.
yeah,
So I think there's value there. And yeah, they did lose a starting tackle.
they did. Oh, I'd say number one need for the Saints. I wouldn't have been surprised if they started with Penning, like you were mentioning. You started kind of going down that path. I thought they might, and then say like they don't care if it's Jameson Williams or Garrett Wilson that comes to them next. Like
Yeah, I mean, if it falls this way and they get Jameson Williams and he's able to come in mid-season and be healthy and get their offensive lineman, I think that's very solid all for New Orleans.
All right. So Trevor Penning in. So now we get to fall to Pittsburgh. Back on me. So they were probably hoping that Penning could go because they have a huge issue, offensive tackle and guard. So to your point about the fifth best alignment, right? Like you just need someone. You wanted someone to fall there. Unfortunately for Tyler Linderbaum, the way things fell, it just doesn't work out for him. I think he could be, the best center that has been drafted in 5 years, right? His play is like that good. The issue is that he doesn't really find a home except for Jacksonville. And one of the things, if I didn't think it were unreasonable for teams as far as 20 to trade up to 1 in this year's draft, I would have thought like in past drafts like last year's where everyone was quarterback hungry, Jacksonville could have traded down. So I'm actually looking at teams that might want to, or specifically Jacksonville again, to round out and like really make a robust offensive line to say we've got Lawrence and we've got 5 beasties in front of him, right? And then suddenly Etienne gets better, James Robinson gets better. They lost DJ Chark, but they picked up Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, right? And they've got
And what's his name from Christian Kirk? You're talking about
and
Jacksonville,
Christian
right?
Kirk, yeah, right. So they've got the weapons. I
Zay Jones, Christian. So if I can for a second,
yeah,
just talking about what I said about not loving what the Jaguars did. So Christian Kirk, it's like, yeah, I mean, I think he's still young. He could be a player for them in the future. But it's like the money they paid for bona fide wide receiver too. The amount of like
it's true.
assets that they have now at that position. So yeah, I like the player. Don't love the move, but yeah, they do have him. So yeah, they're not pigeonholed to address that position.
So if I'm the Steelers, where my needs don't really align with what is here on the draft board, I'm looking to fall back. Can you pull an assist for me and help me out with the trade value chart?
Sure. So we're talking about what was that right pick?
For the
20.
33rd pick, for the 20th pick.
So the 20th pick is 850. 33rd pick is 580. So we're talking about 270.
270. All right, and where else are the Jaguars picking? They're also picking in the third round for 65 and 70.
Pick 65 overall is 265 points. That's
Okay.
the first pick in the third round.
So, I mean,
Basically cover it.
the only issue that I would have from the Jaguars' perspective in moving up here is that they've got so much need for their future, right? They've got so many things um, to build off of. There's no rush to go and get him, but the fact that he's like falling is what's enticing to me. The fact that only the Cardinals and Bengals are really categorically looking for centers, could mean, but like I can't expect him to fall past the Bengals at 31. If I want to go get him. Now, if I'm looking as the Cardinals, do the Cardinals want to jump up 4 spots? That might be a little bit more manageable.
See, for Cardinals, uh, I mean, Cardinals. I mean, there's other interior offensive linemen. I think the Cardinals don't necessarily need it to be a center. So I don't know that there's a whole lot of value to move up for an interior offensive lineman in the middle of the first round. I think from that perspective, you have guys like Kenyon Green and Boston College guard Zion Johnson. I think that
That's
will
true.
be available
That's true. They could wait and
at
just
that
get
point.
get whichever one they want at that point. That makes sense. Maybe there's just no market. Does Cincinnati want to come up here? No, screw it. I'm Jacksonville. Oh, the thing I wouldn't want to do if I'm Trent Baalke and I'm showing up, I don't want to like overspend with all these assets that I do have. But that said, moving up 13 picks at the price of a third round pick. Um,
Well, don't forget also Jacksonville already picked up 66 from Detroit in that opening trade, so they have 65 and 66 right now.
oh, that's right. All right, you know what? I'm gonna ship that same pick that I picked up from the Lions, and I'm gonna move up 13 spots.
Get your
I guess I'll have to do
not
pick
generational, but get your center. Yeah.
3-1, 3-1, and 2-1 from the Jaguars. So we're going right
Two
here.
offensive linemen in the first round from Jacksonville.
I mean, it makes sense, right? You've got Trevor Lawrence, and you spent money on wide receivers, not on linemen. And I mean, you did franchise tag Cam Robinson, but like you're also going to say like we're going to be good now, and we're going to be good when Cam Robinson forces our hand and leaves.
Also, I
Leaves
think
next year.
watching the Jaguars last year, I felt like their offense just seemed to get bullied. Like I was
It
like, oh,
did.
is Trevor Lawrence going to be
Yeah.
decent? Like it looks like maybe, but
They
like they need to be the hammer, not the nail. That's why I love the Cam Aquanu pick. Is like it gives them a chance to kind of be the bully instead
right.
of
And the threat of being that battering ram will also not allow the defensive ends to pin their tails back as much, right? Because if they set up for a pass rushing move and they like take a step upfield with these maulers in front of them, they will get pancaked, right? Like I think this style of draft fits for the Jaguars immensely. I think it's worth it to lock it up and say we've got our 5 guys. Trevor, meet the boys, right? And like, and
sure.
here it is. I think there's no. I think if you get those picks and then there's no excuse for the offense not to do well, right? And that's what they want. They want to sell tickets. They want to get the show rolling. Everything. They're all in on Trevor Lawrence. They have been since 2019. So
Well, yeah, and also, I mean, they have pick 33, and they have, a couple in the third round still, 65 and 70. I think,
well, I'm using 33. So I'm using 33 and 65.
using using 33.
The Jaguars are
Okay, I
moving
got
up.
you. You're trading up. Oh, 33. I got you. 33. So that leaves them with 66
Yep.
and 70.
They'll still
So
have 66 and 70 to round it out.
my point was just going to be that I think the Bengals really kind of showed something. Same with the Rams. It's like you can still bring in a receiver, even if you have receivers.
Oh yeah.
And I think Jacksonville could definitely stand to actually kind of really bolster that group, even though they have a couple of guys like you know, if they have a chance to bring in a blue chip receiver, you know, like I think Cincinnati showed like they should, you know,
Yeah, yep.
obviously.
Well, I mean, maybe if the Seahawks feel like they're rebuilding, if after you see a Malik Willis draft pick, maybe they go and try to fetch DK Metcalf.
Imagine
That would
that would
be
be Jacksonville would
spicy.
be much more interesting.
I mean, they've got all this money to spend, right? Like they've got so much. All right, now we get to New England, our favorite playmakers. We've lost J.C. Jackson and Stephon Gilmore in consecutive years. I'd like to be able to fill that back out, but McDuffie being gone is a huge pain in the butt. We did lose Chase Vinovich, who was kind of like a home hero more than the media didn't really
I didn't
recognize
realize he
him.
was gone.
Yeah, he's out. So it's I think this is a perfect spot for George Karlaftis, and just it's not like a huge need, and our defense still could be really good, but we definitely lost some of that like spray, the coverage mechanics, and the safeties aren't getting any younger. McCourty's going to be 33, although I love Duggar. I think Kyle Duggar is going to be fantastic, but I think bolstering the defensive line a little bit here. But you know what? You know what? If Garrett Wilson falls this far, there's no way I don't take him.
Yeah, I
He-
mean, I think he complements and not that Devontae Parker, needs to really factor into your long-term decisions, but I think they'd be complementary.
right. Man, it's really
George
interesting.
Karla- I like George Karlaftis for the Patriots. It reminds me of they've had a lot of these kind of not quite edge, guys that are always around the quarterback, strong, stout against the run. I'm sorry, this is it's like with the Saints. I just
No, for sure.
there there is one other player, but maybe I'll wait until you make your
Oh,
pick.
okay. Well, I mean, like you said about the type of defenders, Bill Belichick has never loved, and he's been happy to trade away the Chandler Jones and the Richard Seymours, right? The guys that actually really threaten the quarterback, he doesn't value as much as the guys that can hold the edge in a 3-4 and do a couple different roles and let the defense as a whole work, right? And Karloftis, you know, this guy played water polo and came to this country to play water polo, and it was only like later that he discovered football. The muscles that you need for that sport, I think he's just going to have this like tissue built up just strength that might be exactly what New England wants. It's just kind of crazy. I don't It's probably tough to see a world where Garrett Wilson falls this far, and if he does, New England, they love. I think Kendrick Bourne came on late, and he was very strong, and we expected that to happen. I think you and I both liked his time in San Francisco. The Jacoby Myers is a fan favorite, and like the team erupted when he scored his touchdown finally last year, right? So he's loved. Maybe the need isn't quite there. Like, how do the Packers feel about sliding up one pick? Because I'm fine picking Karloftis next. Do you want to go up one pick? Because I know Aaron Rodgers is like, guys, come on. Like, now, if you've
I'm
ever
not gonna
gonna,
lie. Not gonna lie. Like maybe I'll tip my hand for what the Packers are thinking. Um, ahead of time. I think it won't affect New England. Honestly, I think we'll get panned for this. Like I said, Garrett Wilson. It's like these guys hate Garrett Wilson. Um, I think the Packers take Chris Olave, and the reason is because the teammate from Ohio State, projected to be lower over the higher, more touted teammate. You look at kind of film from them. It's like they had the same, basically the same 40 time anyway. But I think everybody in the world thought that Chris Olave was going to run faster, and we're surprised that Wilson was able to run the same speed as Olave. I think part of it is that what Olave does is like he sets up the defender and then has the deceptive speed. So I think he's somebody that's going to run by the whole coverage, or who's going to really burn, like a cornerback in man to man.
mm-hmm.
And what does Aaron Rodgers do? He throws the ball down the field. So Garrett Wilson. So that's the thing, same reason why I don't love necessarily Treylon Burks for the Packers. Aaron Rodgers isn't like a get it to the receiver and have him 5 yards and have him run the rest of the way. Aaron Rodgers is the guy who's going to hit the receiver down the field, and I think that receiver right now on the board is actually Chris Olave. So
Okay, so
I think,
they're not biting then.
yeah,
Okay, all right, no bites. You know what? I'm going with my gut on this one. That this is the pick for the Patriots. The style I think fits everything that Bill Belichick is looking for, and I think he values not just the skill set but just everything about this guy. I think he takes them, and he has taken wide receivers rarely in the first round, and it never works out for the Patriots. So part of that has got to be going in.
well, it never works.
It's just like they're much better off just signing guys from other teams. Give us the Wes Welkers, give us the Randy Moss. We'll take other people's drop offs. Kendrick Bourne and who else? Nelson Aguilar. Like their wide receivers are fine. I think they'll be fine. I think they're going to take George Karlaftis. So, anyways, it's on you now. Green Bay. Is
Yeah, I
this
mean, so
Olave?
yeah, I think Chris Olave, yeah, in this case, is the pick. Yeah, no, I think it's just a really good fit. I mean, obviously, not Devontae Adams is a different type of receiver, but I don't think Devontae Adams wasn't a product of Aaron Rodgers. I think Devontae Adams is just an amazing technician who has the size and strength and quickness, and so put him with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, and you get production. But I just think that I think Olave. I think you see all these passes to like Marquez Valdez Scantling, and these guys down the field, Equanimeous St. Brown, that like the ball is there and the receiver just this whole thing
Isn't
about
quite
like
good
you put
enough.
air under it and trust your guy to get to it like what Tyreek Hill does, but obviously Chris Olave is different. But I think he gives Aaron Rodgers that type of player, which he hasn't really had. So the Hail Mary specialist gets but yeah, I mean, yeah.
Right.
So I don't mean to paint him as a Hail Mary, like the defense is back there and everybody jump ball. I mean
No.
specifically, like
Yeah.
the defense is offsides, you get a free play, and
That
see if you
exactly.
can't get him to like burn his out
And
time.
Olave is the guy that can punish that better than anybody on this board. I mean, it's interesting about Devontae Adams because I remember when he was drafted and they were like this exciting guy from camp. He's like outperforming expectations. He looks really good, but then he dropped everything, and then his rookie year was a wash. It was like well, whatever. All right, next year, okay, this guy's seeing the field like oh yeah, he looks really good, but same thing. It was he looks really good in practice, but it wasn't translating to the game. Eventually, something clicked, which probably had to be that relationship with your quarterback. Rodgers is like, listen, I'm gonna get you I'm gonna give you these opportunities. I'm gonna stand up for you to be that guy for me. And so it's interesting to see how these wide receivers develop, and people expect them to be good right away. And I think especially after the year that the wide receivers have been having, right, looking at Metcalf, AJ Brown, and then like that entire class of ridiculous wide receivers, where you're talking about 10 guys that are all showing round one value returns, and then Jamar Chase and Devontae Smith and even Waddle last year, like all these guys are producing, which hadn't been the trend for a long time.
You know,
So
talking about Devontae Adams early years too. I remember back to Brett Favre and Greg Jennings. So Greg Jennings was kind of like on the depth chart, and Brett Favre early on was like, this guy's going to be a guy,
yeah,
and kind of tied himself. And Aaron Rodgers kind of did the same with Devontae Adams early on. He was like, I think he really, would say in his press conferences like, this guy is better than you guys think, or this is a player that can really be a star for us.
oh
It's hard to tell. You read between the lines. It's like, is he trying to do the same thing Brett Favre did? Is it the truth? But
well, yeah. I mean, I think it was for him. That's what got him so pissed. Who's the guy that they shipped off to Buffalo?
oh yeah, I know the one.
Names
Kumaro,
is huh?
Kumaro.
Kumaro, yeah. Kumaro, he was doing the exact same things. And it's like, why the F did you let this guy go? He gets it. He can do everything. Just put him on the field. He'll the numbers will come.
Guess he hasn't done much of anything. Is that what you're getting?
No, well, no. I think maybe he would have, but I think Rodgers really just wants to be able to have control of his own. I mean, he has said that he's vocalized it very openly. I want to have some say in the process that affects my own ability to perform my job, right? And he has been very vocal about that. and now with the 2 year contract, I'm sure he's saying like, no, I want to handpick my guy. But anyways, enough about Green Bay. That team's really freaking good, and I think they're still going to be good. And now they've got 2 running, but they've got Thunder and Lightning, and everything on that line is going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, they just need somebody to catch the ball.
All right, Arizona, they lost Christian Kirk. This team was the hottest team in the league. Then Hopkins went out, and then no one else could catch the ball for them. Um, it's not their number one
Are they
need.
gonna stop the Garrett Wilson fall?
Is
Um,
is is this where he ends up? Like,
so I don't think so. I mean, well, so so I mean, I don't know about, and DeAndre Hopkins is expected to be back, right? And they have the that I'm not up to date on his health, but
he should
they
be.
have the um, what's his name, the rookie from last year, the exciting kind of slot um, receiver, and they've invested a lot in receiver position in recent years. Um,
It
I think
is.
part
Sorry
of
to
it was to
interrupt.
say,
I'm just going to interrupt real quick. DeAndre Hopkins will complete his recovery in February, so he is expected to be fully healthy right now as of this day. So
so I mean, it's possible they go that direction. I mean, it's an offense that uses a lot of receivers. I think I mean, I don't know, if they still have hopes for Andy Isabella, and I'm forgetting the name of the guy that they drafted last year. But so there's this whole thing about Kyler Murray doesn't want to play next year unless he's offered a new contract, and I think they definitely have a need on the offensive line. I think this might be a spot to kind of give him a guy up front like a Kenyon Green, just to kind of show him that you care about his protection, his health.
mhm.
Not just throwing him out there to the wolves. To get injured before he comes up on a second contract.
Yeah,
Um, so
Ron.
yeah, I mean, they definitely look at the receiver. The player I was going to mention with New England, I think they look at too is Daxton Hill. I think is a player I've seen listed as a safety who's played a lot of slot cornerback. So
Yeah,
that's why I really like him for the Patriots is because that versatility within the secondary. But and then you have Booth from Clemson. I think is more of kind of a strictly outside corner, somebody that I think really plays bridge on the outside well, but maybe he's kind of stuck on that outside role because it lacks the quickness to stay with the shifty slot receivers. But I'm going to go with Kenyon Green. I think they have that need on the offensive line, and if he's the quarterback. Um,
yeah, that does make a lot of sense. They're like, hey, hey Kyler, we got you a lineman. Same thing as with Trevor Lawrence, right? Just hey, we're investing in you now, right? Like we'll see. I mean, the whole thing with restructured contracts and whatnot and rookie deals, it's all a mess. But yeah, I love that pick. Kenyon Green to the Cardinals. How about the Dallas Cowboys?
well, it's hard to ignore Devontae Wyatt is there. I think some you talk about Jordan Davis, and um, you know there's some speculation that Devontae Wyatt could be the first defensive tackle drafted out of Georgia. Um, I saw one play where he's up against a stunt on the offensive line, and he just shifts around 3 guys like just totally laterally, goes entirely around the stunt, and gets to the quarterback. I think he's a disruptor in the middle, fits the need. Um, you know, I mean, so they have what's that? They lost.
They lost Randy
I'm looking
Gregory.
at Michael Gallup. What's Michael Gallup still in Dallas?
Gallup's there. They lost Cooper and Cedric Wilson.
They lost Cooper, yeah. So it's Gallup and C.D. Lamb. So honestly, it's hard not to put Garrett. What's his name? List in this. Where am I?
Garrett Wilson.
Garrett Wilson in this spot.
That'd
So
talk about the Eagles and Lions trajectory of wide receivers. That'd be something similar where they get Gallup, then Lamb, then and they spent a one to get Cooper. So
um, yeah, for sure. But I mean, like, so what do they have behind Gallup and Lamb at this point. But yeah, so I mean, Gallup, it's true. Gallup hasn't had really the opportunity to, I think, be featured in the offense. So yeah, my
He was great 2 years ago, before or 2 and 3 years ago, right? But right before CD Lamb got there, he was having a fantastic year.
yeah, for sure. So yeah, no, I think that's fair. And also, I think there's part of the reason why wide receivers are slipping in this mock, I think, is because of that. Because there's still some guys behind these top guys that teams might be okay waiting on to see if they can get. I think is a part of why that slip's happening. So yeah, let's go with the defensive tackle,
Okay,
Devontae Wyatt for the Cowboys.
Devontae Wyatt. All right, we're looking at Bills now. Cornerback, linebacker, guard, defensive tackle. I mean, David Ojabo looks like the best defensive player here. They've been surrounding. They really have been surrounding Josh Allen with wide receivers and giving him basically anyone he wants. They they just picked up OJ Howard to go with Dawson Knox, who I think they like, although Dawson Knox had some untimely fumbles. But if they're rounding out, like, they want to be a running gun offense. I think they saw how popular that was. I think this is where the slip ends. And just for the sheer value of getting the ninth best player on the board.
Yeah, I mean they just lost Cole Beasley. Emmanuel Sanders isn't under contract. I think yeah, I think they definitely so Stephon Diggs being kind of the number one, the guy who gets open in all areas of the field. Gabriel Davis, I think is more of a intermediate to deep threat. So yeah, to get
Yeah.
somebody who's more of a threat around the line of scrimmage, and Josh Allen definitely throws those screen passes that's in that offense.
Well, I'm going to
Yeah, I
say, like,
think
how ridiculous is this offense if you have, Gabriel Davis on the sideline, at intermediate and deep, like long depth. I think Gabriel Davis is the best wide receiver that people don't like pay attention to. I think he's absolutely phenomenal. But you've got Stephon Diggs, who I told you one time reminds me of
yeah,
Jerry
you were on
Rice.
his train before I was for sure.
Yeah, that was it. Was I was on Stephon Diggs right off the bat. Like that guy is unreal. Reminds me of the wide receivers of when I was a kid. Just incredible in the
They just
acceleration and
re-signed him.
open field. But I think now, like, you round that out, you get Garrett Wilson with Stephon Diggs with Gabriel Davis, and then that frees up OJ Howard to be a receiving guy if he wants to, or you can have Dawson Knox being that tougher set. All right, next we've got the Titans, who have one of the strongest rosters in all of football. Linebacker, tackle, guard, corner. Is there rumors? You've probably followed AJ Brown as closely as anybody, uh, because of fantasy football. But is there any doubt about where he's going to end up?
So it was, I don't know, I think it was the GM said definitively that he'll be on the Titans next year. Take that for I don't know how long ago he said that, but I just heard that comment was made.
Yeah,
Um, but it's he's a player that's missed some time. He's not he's not like a classic wide receiver one in terms of his play style.
yeah.
So
It's almost like a running back. Just get him the ball and then have him just
I was
be
thinking about
better than
AJ Brown
everyone.
when you talked about Devontae Adams like dropping balls. Like I remember in his rookie training camp, the offensic coordinator chewed him out for falling down all the time. He's like, "Stop falling down,"
Now he
in
doesn't
his
fall
first.
down. He takes it to the
No,
house.
he doesn't even fall down when he gets the hit put on him. Obviously things change. But no, I think he's safe in Tennessee or staying in Tennessee. But you never know.
All right, so if I'm looking at the rest of their, wide receiver is not really a need, but just if they're looking down uh, going down the future. But Andrew Booth is looking pretty saucy for Tennessee right here. I could go with the next tackle or guard. Look at Raymond or Zion Johnson. Um, BC's puts out tackles. It seems like every single year they put out a monster. But you know what, Andrew Booth, too valuable, just sitting there. Like I feel like I'd almost be reaching for the other guys, whereas Andrew Booth is sitting right there, and I feel like I might just be able to leave him on the sideline alone. And they just lost. You know, they lost Janoris Jenkins, who was getting older, but I feel like this will round out their defense fairly well, which did take a huge step back. I will say, I was surprised at how far the the Titans defense fell relative to 2 years ago, where they were one of the best units. But anyways, they're going to
I mean,
round
they've
it out.
still been looking for the pass rush. I mean, Harold Landry, I think, kind of emerged, but
Yeah.
they haven't really had, you know.
Well, for consecutive years, they've had amazing like gap. You know, the type of the way that we described Jordan Davis, right? They've got, man. The
And
names are
Simmons
gonna.
is the headliner in the middle is more
Simmons
kind
is
of
great
clear.
now, and before him, it was a guy that went to Denver, All Pro at his position, Jarrell Casey, right? And that like so they've had that interior, but they haven't really had the rush for a long time. But you know, by having an extra guy on the edge on the outside, maybe you buy your lineman an extra half second to get there, and maybe we can go. So let's see, we got Tampa Bay next. They lost Jordan Whitehead, All Pro. Um,
I didn't realize Jordan might have his all pro. I know he was a solid player, but yeah, so they have, and they still have Antoine Bloomfield there in the safety position. You know,
oh, I might be thinking
solid
of
cornerbacks.
Winfield was the All Pro, right?
Okay, that would make sense. I mean, I don't. I mean, that was his second season. You know, I know that he was a solid player. He missed a little bit of time with injury last year.
Let me just double check. I want to make sure. I want to get this right. Let's see at safety. Oh, you know what? Neither of them ended up making it. I want to say. Um, I want to say that he was the number one rated player by Pro Football Focus, but he ended up not being a pro. He ended up not being on the All Pro team.
So Jordan Whitehead, was he? Where did he go? Did he go to the Jets?
Whitehead went to. Yeah, to the Jets. Yep, to replace Marcus May.
Yeah. No, like I said, you know, I think, you know, so much depends on Zach Wilson, you know, and you know, they probably need help at wide receiver, but you know, Jets, you know, that's you know, my neighborhood, they're Mets fans and they're Jets fans. I think there's reason for optimism for Jets more so than, you know, any time recently.
Yeah,
Um,
yep, a lot of building blocks. All right, so Tampa Bay. What are we looking at?
So they also lost. I mean, Alex Kappa is not, you know, really a headliner, but you know, I believe went to the Chiefs. You know, interior offensive lineman. You got Tom Brady there in his like 50-year-old season. So
Right.
I think they come right in and get Zion Johnson out of Boston College.
I just give the old man a little shout out. Oh, this probably
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
backwards, but
I mean, you know, he's running the show there. He gets to pick who they're drafting. He gets to pick who the head coach is. So he might as well pick himself an interior offensive lineman. You know, I think you know, they're still very solid roster. I think you know, they expect to compete.
who are they going to pick if you're going
Also,
to
but I think Zion Johnson, the guard, interior offensive lineman from Boston College,
Zion Johnson? Yep.
bolster that protection.
All right. Now Green Bay with their next pick, they did get Chris Olave. What's next?
I mean, I think you know, slam dunk. Definitely picking Matt Corral. Because I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say, like, are you?
You know, light another fire under him. You know, it's Jordan Love isn't good enough. Yeah, no, I don't think they're picking Matt Corral.
He might retire on the spot, like just to spite
Yeah,
them. Be like, oh, all right, fine, you're gonna do that. Retired. Don't care if you give me a new 2 year deal worth like whatever $90 million. Like, f you. Peace.
yeah. Imagine what would
I'm
happen.
gonna go to
Um,
Jeopardy. They need me.
so what did we? Let's see. So Green Bay, we already they got Chris Olave earlier on. You know, so what do they have for their wide receiver room now at this point? You know, they lost
I will.
MVS, they lost Devontae Adams.
I will say though, just for a moment, with the Matt Corral, conversation, and Sam Howell and Ritter behind them. These last five picks are definitely the territory where any team that's looking to trade up wants that fifth year option. So if you're ever thinking like, maybe I want to move back, other teams that didn't end up getting a quarterback, um, Kenny Pickett ended up going to Atlanta. Malik Willis went to Seattle. Would Washington want to come up here to get a fifth year option? Would to ensure they like their guy Carson Wentz? Who knows? The rumor was that when the Commanders signed Carson Wentz, their Super Bowl odds didn't change. It was like not. It was not newsworthy. It was just like, yeah, okay, yeah. It's not an improvement. It just is. They love Taylor Heineke, but like, are you willing to bank on those guys being your room? And I don't know.
You feel bad for Heineke. You thought he might get a chance, but
Unfortunately tried too hard. Like he tried to make a play, busted his shoulder. Like that highlight play running down the left sideline and reaching to get the ball in the end zone, and you won over your entire team, but maybe screwed yourself over. Carson Wentz, same thing, right? Diving into the end zone, and he gets helmet to the knee, tears up his knee, and
I'm not sure Carson Wentz went over his teammates at any point though.
oh, I don't know. I mean, he was beloved his rookie year for and his MVP season too. It's just like the Eagles ended up winning the Super Bowl anyways, but like that year he was the MVP favorite through 13 weeks. So who knows? But all right, I'm just throwing it out there that there might be teams, if they're in the market, for example, Pittsburgh, uh, might want to trade into the first round if you're willing to listen.
Looking at Matt Corral, and then there's also the Cincinnati quarterback. Was it Dalton? Isn't it? I forget. There's two quarterbacks. The teams could be targeting for there at the end of the first round. I think knock on Matt Corral largely is it's funny you mentioned his name for Washington. Getting injured on that play diving into the end zone. So Matt Corral is a quarterback that one person said he plays like he's Josh Allen, but he's not built like that. So is he a player like Baker Mayfield who's like he would be fast enough if he was bigger. Since he's smaller, he's not fast enough because he's not going to be escaping. He's going to take too many hits.
Right.
I think of the quick release play style. Kind of the fearless leader. If there's a team that would be a dark horse to come up and try to get Matt Corral at the end of the first round, I might think New Orleans might consider. I mean, I'm not sure about their capital, but I think he would. They're a team that could consider. They have Jameis Winston there for now, and then have the young quarterback behind. Green Bay, they lost to Darius Smith. They could definitely bolster the pass rush. Boye Mafe out of Minnesota is somebody that really has the measurables, the traits. I think that's kind of I'd say where I'm leaning with this pick. A need, value, a player with a lot of upside.
You're talking about Mafe.
Yes. So I think there's definitely a possibility at this point in the first round that somebody's going to make an offer to come up and get one of those. Desmond Ritter would be the other quarterback I was talking about. But barring that, I think in this case, the pass rusher is the direction they'll go.
Okay, so we
got
also,
like I said, they could take another receiver. Honestly, that's where I started off with that. They lost Devontae Adams, and Marcos Valdez Scantling. So that leaves Alan Lazard, and they still have Equanimeous St. Brown. So they brought in, I think, AJ Green. They just signed, but they could go that direction.
Wait, did they really?
But I think AJ Green just signed somebody. I think it's the Packers.
AJ Green. I would have missed this. No, Cardinals 3 hours ago. AJ Green, Cardinals agreed a 1 year deal. So he's staying with the Cardinals.
I'll feel better about not putting Garrett.
Yeah, and you have you've got
Same with
Rondale.
the Cardinals.
Rondale Moore was fantastic last year.
Rondell
So
Moore's the one I forgot. Yeah.
yeah. All right, so here we go with Kansas City. That's a room that's not picking a quarterback. I'm gonna say someone is trading me for this pick to go get what I assume is going to be Desmond Ritter. The question is who. Now, Detroit would love to get. Well, I guess you'll speak. I've heard that Detroit would love to get Desmond Ritter at 32. Would they be willing to jump up again to make sure that no one else does it?
Mm.
I'm gonna throw some bones out there because I think this is Ritter maybe Detroit waits. I'm not sure exactly who is gonna give him. I know Kansas City might want to get someone like Burks if he falls this far. Um, having lost Tyreek Hill, but they did pick up Juju. They could still have a potent offense. They do need to replenish it. Kelsey's getting up there. I guess wide receiver. Wide receiver is in theory might be my number one need, and the fact that Traylon Burks is still there means I probably pick him up with this pick and I try to ship the next one. So I'm gonna do that one. Traylon Burks. I'm picking him at 29, but I'm shopping 30. Do we have any buyers?
Let's see. So who's here to come up for? I think. So you have the quarterbacks for sure. I mean, that would be the big thing. So who?
It happens every year, right? Every year there's people that move into the first round to get that fifth year option. Pittsburgh is the team that kind of jumps off the screen to me.
Agreed. The Panthers didn't get a quarterback there in the first round, so they're definitely somebody who would consider moving up to that pick for sure.
The other thing to consider though is with the free agent quarterbacks that are still available, there's still some chance where they could say, here's our guy. But for example, in Detroit, they if they had Ritter on a 5-year contract, and they have Goff, who they basically bought his contract, right? They acquired picks to also acquire Goff and had to wait out this contract. They've got one more year of that. If they also got a quarterback here, then they could say like, we can choose which one we want next year. And have a lot of options. I think it's really intriguing. The question is whether or not they want to move up to do it. It wouldn't be too hard though, because they're sitting right there at 2-2. The second pick. Let's see who else they have. Pittsburgh could offer their second, third, and their compensatory fourth. That's putting absolutely no faith in Trubisky to get the job done. Let me see, Detroit. I want.
I think at this point, I mean, first round pick in 2023 draft would be the type of thing you might. I mean, from a team that expects to compete anyway, would also be in play to come back into the back end of the first round.
That's true. Is that Pittsburgh? Do you think? I don't think they're very good.
Oh yeah. I mean, the AFC is too tough. It's like it probably ends up being like a 18 overall pick. Maybe. If you Matt Corral, and Ritter, like if you think one of those guys can be your quarterback, I mean, yeah, maybe.
All right. Well, I'm gonna ship this to Detroit. I'm gonna field other options from other teams, but I'm looking at your pick in 2 picks. I want to take your 5th round pick and 6th round pick to move up 2 spots.
So if I'm Detroit right now, I'm actually feeling pretty good.
Okay, so they're out. Pittsburgh.
I was forgetting Traylon Burks was off the board, but so for me it's like I think Detroit. I think another wide receiver makes a lot of sense for Detroit, and I have my eye on one in particular that actually I was I kind of think Kansas City will wind up focusing on. That's going to be Jahan Dotson.
Oh yeah.
Talk about the player that can put air under the ball, and they're going to go get it.
Actually, you know what? Do you mind if I backtrack one spot? Because
sure.
I had myself with Dotson on Kansas City to try to
King Johnson makes
replace.
more sense for Kansas City than Burks. I mean, Burks I think is a player that people will really covet at this point in the draft, like if he's still there. But Dodson, I think, just like you talk about Mahomes extending the play in the pocket, kind of having that like medium cross and catching the guy in the far, it's like
Yeah,
Dodson's just, I think, to me, is that guy that can really open up their deep down the field passing game.
100%. All right, so
As far as where Detroit is, so you're talking about obviously Kansas City and Cincinnati are not picking a quarterback. So for Detroit to consider moving up here, it's because they think somebody else is going to.
right,
Um,
yeah, they're basically competing with what I expect. Let's see, who are the suitors? Pittsburgh,
uh,
Carolina,
Possibly the Giants.
potentially the Giants, although that would be a huge vote of no confidence. And the
Yeah,
rumor
they're
is
trying to say they have confidence.
the rumor is that that they were trying to get rid of the fifth and seventh pick. Like they're trying to move out of at least one of those spots into next year's draft. Like they're trying to ship it for a 1 and a 2, for example. Um, and people just don't want to do it. And I think that's because they value next year's quarterback class more than jumping up here. And also like you're definitively telling Daniel Jones like I don't trust you, right? And I think I don't know, maybe they don't really want to do that.
Washington
Pittsburgh,
might not feel as worried about sending that message. Although Carson, it's just funny. I've shown my talk a lot about the Eagles and last year and this year. Um,
yeah,
I'm not a big believer in Carson Wentz in the locker room, and I think he showed, you know, I mean, he's somebody that won't take it very well if a quarterback is drafted
yes, yep.
underneath him. So maybe
You,
that's not
you,
the best move for Washington.
something I had forgotten about is that Pittsburgh acquired the first pick of the let's see, yeah, 2-1. When Jacksonville moved up to pick, they're actually sitting at 2-1, which gives them the perfect capital to jump up for relatively inexpensive. So you know what? I'm going to offer my fourth and my new second as Pittsburgh. So this becomes the 2-1 and the 4 something like 10th. The fourth, no, the fourth. This is the 33rd pick of the fourth. Does that seem? That seems about right from Pitt. So Pittsburgh is going to jump up 3 spots from first round pick in the second round to jump into this spot to take Desmond Ritter.
Okay, so Pittsburgh has picked 33. You're saying?
Yes, from the trade with the Linderbaum trade for Jacksonville.
Okay, got you.
So I'm going to go Pittsburgh Desmond Ritter here.
All
And you
right.
know what? I think Kansas City can probably fleece them. So I think this is also going to be plus a 6. It's just going to be another kind of, I don't want to say meaningless pick, but they're not going to undersell. They're going to tell them, hey, there's other teams. Detroit can come up. We can easily trade up with them if they heard that you were going for this, for example. But anyways, all right, Desmond Ritter to Pitt, to Pittsburgh. And this is largely based on the changes recently have had Ritter, shooting up the board. Corral could be the top guy here. Howell showed a lot of growth, but I think if Pittsburgh's trying to set up for the best chance at being a winning franchise down the road, I think they go Ritter. So next we have Cincinnati.
So if I can just talking about the Chiefs,
Go
a
ahead.
couple thoughts there. I think they could be in play for Daxton Hill. They lost Tyrann Mathieu. At least is still a free agent. Travarius Ward, brought in Justin Reed, but they could definitely bolster the secondary there.
This
And another thing,
I want to say real quick to answer that. I think that's who they want with this pick right here. First pick of the second
okay,
round, they're going to take Dax Hill because I don't think Cincinnati or Detroit is taking him.
we still have Burks on the board. I was going to say the other
Burks is
player
available.
that I would be looking at for Kansas City here. Kansas City's doing kind of a mini rebuild. Like a mid-flight refuel.
Yeah,
With
that's
getting
true.
rid of Tyreek Hill. Um, and it's like so Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are solid in their positions, and they're going to be there for 10 years, maybe whatever if they're able to, um, but they're kind of retooling, and they have, I think they have a window. Um, the fan base will kind of permit them to maybe have a slightly down year possibly. I'm looking at David Ojabo. The question is, torn Achilles is a significant injury to come back from.
The worst.
I saw one mock draft that had him go number one overall.
What?
Probably before his injury.
Before the injury.
But just talking about the explosive step, the edge rusher, the premium edge rusher that can get around the corner, can we didn't talk about Kayvon Thibodeau. I was thinking, he's that player that I mentioned Von Miller for the Broncos in the Super Bowl. Where it was just like completely blew up the game. It was just there. It's like a player that will be in the back of a young quarterback's mind every play. Like, I need to get rid of this ball half a second faster than I normally would, because otherwise, you could get a hit that you'll remember when you retire. Anyway, I don't know that David Ojabo. I'm thinking more of Thibodeau, but anyway, you have a chance to get a premier pass rusher at this point in the draft for a team like Kansas City that is in such tough conference, and with ascending teams, and so I would definitely consider that pick if I were Kansas City as well.
I think they are. I think this is, if the draft falls this way, I think they're in a prime position where Detroit already picked a defensive end. Cincinnati does not need safety help. I think that they could get either of those players with the 2-1 pick. If anything, I would ship the Totson pick for later. Kind of banking on someone like Sky Moore maybe still being there. Christian Watson can be that guy that takes the top off of a defense. They might be able to get them in the second round. Man,
what's his name from Georgia for the wide receiver?
All right, here's we're gonna skate.
George Pickens.
We're
also a player that could be that deep threat.
I'm gonna skate. Basically, the Chiefs have so many interesting things to do with 2 picks, and you've sold me on Ojabo, and the fact that they can they can definitely turn this 2-1 pick into Dax Hill. They can take Ojabo and Hill back to back, or but not back to back. They could take them back to back. I think they'll extract the extra value, anticipating that Cincinnati won't come after them. Actually, you know what? For that reason, this would have to be Dax Hill, and then Ojabo.
Cincinnati might get Ojabo.
Well, no, because Cincinnati won't. Right? Like they just came off. They've got multiple Pro Bowl defensive ends. Right? Like, why would they pick Ojabo? I mean, it's like it's not a position of need for them at all, safety or edge, right? So maybe maybe they gamble. Maybe they're the ones that don't. Maybe they don't trade back if they want Ojabo and Hill.
Well, I was gonna say there's good picks for them to have. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was getting at. But and I agree they don't necessarily have to go wide receiver, because there's several options left, and they did bring in Juju Smith-Schuster and Marcus Valdes-Scantling. It's like they bought themselves some time at wide receiver. They still have Mecole Hardman is there, and they have some people.
So yeah, I'm
Travis Kelce and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, has some ability in the passing game.
So let's see. I want to make sure that we didn't over-index the people that we took off the board. Treylon Burks is back on the board. Yeah, I think they're happy with the wide receivers they can get later if they need to. Even right, they, like you said, Mecole Hardman can still just be that guy that flies, because he is that guy. He's not quite Tyreek Hill fast, but he's really freaking fast. So it's a fantastic spot. If I'm Kansas City, I'm actually pretty pumped. If like Ojabo, Hill come to me, sweet, right? Like refuel, like you said, midair refuel. Some combination of this is going to happen. All right, so in this mock, Dax Hill's gone. Cincinnati's here. I don't think edge is their guy. There's no way they can go Treylon Burks, right? You would think, right? It's oh man, Bernard Raymond is here.
He's looking at Kaiir Elam.
Kaiir Elam, I think, is where they would end up going.
So perimeter. It just they have the need.
And their pass rush is so good that they might be looking at a guy like Elam and saying like, hey, this guy can actually hold down a spot. It's only a third of a second less that he needs to do it because our pass rush is so good. So yeah, they're going to take Elam. So that puts it on Detroit. Are you going Traylon Burks? Are you going for
Yeah,
the
so you think about so they have the receiver from that they drafted last year, that came on strong. I think towards the end of the year. So I think they do have that piece, but they need more receivers. And then think about Jared Goff. Compared to um, Patrick Mahomes. Jared Goff is not the guy who's really extending the play and getting the ball, down the field. He makes some good throws. But so I think, yeah, Treylon Burks gives him a guy with real after the catch ability, somebody that you can kind of plan your offense around, somebody that can be a primary target in the offense.
So you were referencing Amon-Ra St. Brown. They also picked
Yeah,
up DJ
that's right.
Chark.
Yeah, DJ Chark, of course, obviously, what happened in Jacksonville last year. It's hard to know if where blame goes, and to say that DJ Chark took a step back. I mean, but it was Marvin Jones, and it was other receivers
I
for
think it was the
Jacksonville.
offensive line. Like,
But I mean,
basically,
like,
Trevor
it
Lawrence had
wasn't
to.
DJ Chark that was getting passes thrown to him. You know what I mean?
Right, but it was panic throws. Like it didn't feel like he got to be. If the report on him is that he's supposed to be AJ Green, then AJ Green doesn't want the ball out in half a second, right? He wants some time to get to the top of the route and make some big plays downfield and big posts and sideline catches and all these things, and that just it didn't feel like it was there. But it could be that he stepped back. It could be. So are the
Okay.
Lions looking at Burks to round out the room?
Yeah, I mean, I think I do think there's a positional need, and I think it's definitely the best player on the board, on our board. So I think they would take the best player
All right, and
in the
that
position
will
of need.
if we go with the Grace picks like we did last year, we actually hit the Elijah Moore pick for the Jets at the top of the second round.
Okay, nice.
KC, yeah, I think they're happy if Ojabo comes down here, and like you said, I think you're more happy to take a gamble on a guy in the second round. It's just the sense of it, right? Your first round pick is someone that you're expecting to play for half a decade or more, right? And you just don't. You might not know about Ojabo coming off of the Achilles, but the talent is there, right? Obviously, that guy's talent is out of this world. The other thing I was going to ask, about Traylon Burks and Detroit, are there any other candidates that want to come up and get their quarterback? Does Carolina
So
want to
I'm
trade
looking
into
right
the
now
first?
about the Panthers draft capital because I think the Panthers would love to get Matt Corral, you know like to be able to spend their first pick on a premium a player that that they're not reaching making a huge reach for. But yeah, they don't
Unf-
pick again until the fourth round until 137.
Yep. So they
The
would probably have to
Panthers.
give up like either next year's one to do it, or like their fourth this year and a two, like a package.
Yeah, so I don't know that the Panthers are in a position to be giving up future first round picks. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, for
if they're
sure.
going to the year with either Matt Corral or Sam Darnold at quarterback, there's a good chance they're going to be picking high next year in a
Yeah,
draft with great quarterbacks
it's
potentially. And
true.
so
It's true.
I don't think they're going to be the ones to trade up there. But
And
I do think the Saints could be in play. Um, let's see,
but the Saints, I mean, the Saints love Winston, right? He was great last year. He played fantastic. No complaints about Jameis Williams last year. I don't have any.
Yeah, no, maybe he's a player with pedigree. He's a player that has tools. I think I remember it's funny. I was laughing because the top of the mock draft last year, you had James Winston to the Jaguars and Alex Smith to the Jets. These situations of having like a veteran quarterback in a place where you have a rookie quarterback coming in,
Yeah.
and I remember saying I think that Jameis Winston and the Saints stand to benefit mutually from him staying there. Him giving them that viable option at quarterback, and them giving him a place to to prove it. Where I think he kind of fell out in Tampa. But yeah, I think he's still somebody that could be a legitimate quarterback. So yeah, they won't. It's not like they're gonna be dying to do it, but you know, you know, don't be surprised. They're a team that has some building blocks, and yeah, the big question is whether they think of James Winston as a long term quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been fun looking at it. If we look back and we wanted to see, we already did some revision. I did some revision on Kansas City because, I really do think that they're going to get ridiculous value at that spot, and I do think that Dax Hill is great. I think that another guy that I've heard may end up being the best safety in the draft was Jalen Petrie, and they could easily like flip him as well, take Ojabo here and then choose between Hill and Petrie later. I think it's really interesting. But going back, are there what things would you tighten up? Where do you see like the holes? Obviously, it's tough to know that Garrett Wilson was going to go all the way to 25th when a lot of people have him first wide receiver off. But
I don't love the Mike Gardner to Carolina pick. I mean, like I said, I feel like they had all these exciting tools on defense, but the big issue is that they're not necessarily really built to be that stout against the run. So then they couldn't stay on the field on offense, and so you turn it over, have the defense on the field. You're not getting the turnovers and the sacks that you're built to get. So to add another cornerback there, not my favorite pick. I just can't see him falling really much more than that, and I don't know that they're in love with a quarterback. It's probably going to be Kenny Pickett, I think, at Carolina.
Well, I think, yeah, it could easily happen that Pickett goes there. I think in most mocks that I've seen, it's not Ekwonu and Neal 2 and 3, right? It's Gardner's going to the Jets, and that's leaving open Ekwonu or Neal to go to the Giants, which I think is what they're hoping for. I think they would much rather one of these two guys. I think Charles Cross is a marked downgrade, at least just like from where the prospects are rating them. Charles Cross doesn't have what these two guys have. It's interesting. Sauce Gardner could easily end up with the Jets, and that could cause like a whole chain of effects. But yeah, very simple. Kenny Pickett. You think it would be Pickett here? Because what about Malik Willis?
I can see Cross going there. Like I think Carolina really,
That's true.
They could really stand to upgrade an offensive line.
That's true. If Gardner goes up in one of these top 5 picks, then yeah, one of those tackles is going to slide down, and Carolina could easily pick that up. What if Malik Willis is the one that ends up? I mean, right now we have Pickett and Willis going 8 and 9, but like imagine Willis going into Carolina. Right, like you have run CMC with Malik Willis, and just suddenly, DJ Moore. How do you defend that team?
They'd have a lot of speed for sure. But of course, I don't know. I mean, Malik Willis, about a player that doesn't have that much experience as a starter, and going, it's like Sam Darnold. If they fall on their face early on, it's like they're going to be calling for the backup quarterback to come on the field soon in Carolina.
Yes.
So I think there's
you don't want that
there, especially with an offensive line that isn't going to really hold up. So I don't know. I think that's a big risk. I think it'd be exciting for sure.
This would be. I mean, the chips didn't fall favorably for Carolina, right? Like Gardner could easily be up here. Hamilton could, maybe Hamilton has a safety slides, but just it feels like they would probably expect one of these tackles to fall. Would they trade up one spot with the Giants to do it? I don't know. The Giants have the same glaring hole. They can't allow that to happen. Maybe the Jets end up seeing something like this, right? If you're looking at this as the Jets and be like, yeah, I could slide back 2 picks and get either the same guy or Thibodeau or Gardner at 6, right? And then and then and Carolina gets their choice of tackles potentially. It's very interesting.
But I was gonna say, speaking of the Jets, I think most people have them taking a receiver at 10. You know, whether it's Drake London or Garrett Wilson. Um,
It's true.
I think they have Elijah Moore and Corey Davis is there, Braxton Berrios, but that template of give your young quarterback like a bunch of solid options in the receiving game. So I think that's definitely the the head coach there, Robert Saleh. I remember when he first came on as defensive coordinator of San Francisco. You know, there was all this hype, but then they were bad. They were really underwhelming the first year, especially the first part of the first year. It took him a year or two, but then you look at that 49ers defense. It's like everybody developed. Everybody, Ark Armstead and DeForest Buckner, especially the front seven guys, the
Yeah.
Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, and so I expect the Jets to they'll give him a piece. I'd love to see actually Kyle Hamilton go to the Jets, but pass rusher too. Um, but I think the Jets give him a blue chip player there, but I think one of those two picks has to go to offense. Offensive line, the big question is, what do you think of Mekhi Becton internally, in house? Is he going to be healthy? Because
Yeah.
honestly, I think he has the potential to be the most dominant offensive lineman in the league. But maybe they see him on his way out sooner than later, so they could consider tackle. But wide receiver, um, especially at 10, I think there's a couple guys there that that they might consider for sure.
Yeah, and that would create a change. It would probably dry up the wide receiver market. We wouldn't get the falls that we got. Yeah, it's fascinating. I like seeing. I mean, I'm really curious where Trayvon Walker's gonna end up going because this guy, like I said recently, I've seen him mocked number one, and then the more that people talk about him, the more it's like, yeah, the coaches just put him where they needed him because he was the guy that could do everything and they could trust him to do everything. So they didn't give him the simple job of rush the passer. They gave him like the more complex things, and he was fully capable. And not just like schematically, thinking of what this player can do um, with game knowledge, but just he might just be this freak athlete. He might just be that good all across the board. It'd be really interesting to see where he goes. I love Jordan
So
Davis. Oh, go ahead.
speaking of Trayvon Walker, I see him mocked a lot to the Jets at 4, and I think talking about like put him in a place where there's a coaching staff that would, that he would develop under, not just say okay, like take this super talented athlete as far as like measurables and just go get him, put him on a team with a defensive minded staff.
And you know what? Like, not only is that the Jets, but also thinking about it a little bit, like Salah is a culture first guy, and if there is any question about Thibodeau, culture wise, and you say like I want to develop Trayvon Walker here, like that could make a ton of sense. Where that gets swapped, and they say like I want the guy that's the better athlete. I trust my coaching. I trust my staff. I can develop this guy into whatever I need him to be, and I can count on him. Whereas maybe I'm not saying that you can't count on Thibodeau, but he's another one of those guys that was touted as the number. I know for sure going into this year, it was like Thibodeau's going to be 1-1. That's going to happen. Like going into the season, that was the discussion. He's 1-1. Everyone else we'll figure out later. But
It could be.
does that get to their head where they say, oh, I've made it. I don't need to do everything. But I don't know. It's very
So an
interesting.
interview with Thibodeau recently where he was, talk about the stuff that people are talking about, and he's like, the biggest surprise to me is why I'm not being considered the best player in this draft or whatever. But
Right.
like,
I want that if I'm a coach.
I think he might be right, and if he is right, then I definitely want it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I wouldn't be surprised at all if he goes 2 Detroit, 3 to Houston. He could go 1 to Jacksonville. It's just the I don't know, the game changing ability off the edge, just getting to the quarterback in a flash and then laying the hammer on the quarterback. Like couple of minutes of game tape of Kayvon Thibodeau, and you're like, oh shoot, like
Right.
you know, yeah.
Damn. I
So
want that guy.
the similar thing is with like we said about um, Trayvon Walker is like, put him on a team with a defensive coach because maybe he's relied on his speed around the edge a little bit and hasn't developed kind of counter move to the inside or the hand fighting. You know, you know.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, if Thibodeau falls, I'll be very surprised.
The I was looking at the New Orleans pick because we ended up talking about New Orleans as a win now team, and they're picking up a player that has question marks for September, but ready for playoffs. But you got to make playoff. It's not easy to make the playoffs. So the season is a week longer. They pushed everything back a week. You have that extra week on the far end of the season. Um,
Carolina and Atlanta in the division.
it does seem like there could be some easy jumps there, and the Bucks are just older. It's they're not, but who we'll see what that means. But if they're in win now mode, I wonder if they want the wide receiver that produces right away, just so that they can get that. It's just so weird the whole Michael Thomas dynamic, right? And just whatever they're figuring out, and then I'm sure Michael Thomas realized that whoever's going to be throwing him the ball is not Drew Brees anymore. like that guy was so good at saying I can be in a spot at a time with my body between the defender and me, and I will catch the ball, right? And that was perfect for Brees' skill set. That is not Jameis Winston's skill set at all, right? So it'll be interesting.
That's
Um,
fair.
what if they trade Michael Thomas and then try to get Drake London, and say like we want a fresh start with a guy that
London and Jameis Winston, I think that could be a good match for sure.
I remember Winston mentioning that in let's see, he had Kelvin Benjamin in Florida State, and it was just like I just got a guy, I could just like throw it up there and he'll go get it. Like that's I'll just give him a chance to catch the ball. He'll bail me out. He'll make the play. He didn't say bail me out. He said make the play. But yeah, he could want someone like Drake London, and it's like big target. That's probably what you need with Jameis Winston. A little bit of big target, and see where it goes. What other spots are going?
Actually, one other player that I was thinking a lot about that, of course, for obvious reasons, we brushed over a little bit, is Aiden Hutchinson. So, there's this whole thing about if Jacksonville doesn't take him, then Detroit will take him. Not necessarily. For
It's
example,
true.
if they love Kayvon Thibodeau or um, I guess Ahmad Gardner or Derek Stingley, could be a possibility there. But I think I was thinking about Aiden Hutchinson in a Texans uniform, and I don't think he's. I mean, he's not as big as J.J. Watt, and it's like obviously not the necessarily that type of player. But the original player I was thinking about with him was Max Crosby from Raiders. However, Max Crosby from the Raiders, I don't know if you saw the same thing I saw towards the playoff run and in the playoffs. Max Crosby, I think, has turned into a dominant edge rusher, somebody who takes over a game.
Yeah.
I just don't think Aiden Hutchinson has the physical traits to do that. I think so. He plays like what I thought Max Crosby was going to be, but Max Crosby has turned into something else. And the fact that Max Crosby has turned into what he has, I think, is part of why you look at an Aiden Hutchinson and say that type of player can be worth the number one pick.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure.
This
I think he's going to be a solid foundational piece to a defense, but I don't know that he's going to be a game wrecker in that type of way.
I think everyone I think everyone I've heard speak about it says Hutchinson's safe, right? Like the convergence of floor and ceiling, and you're just like that guy's gonna bring it. This is what he's gonna bring. This is who he is, right? And anyone who is looking for more though is looking at Walker and Tibbs, and they're looking at can I get more than that? And with a first round pick, and if you want him to be Miles Garrett, like if you want him to be this guy that
He's not going
really
to be Nick Bosa. He's not going to be T.J. Watt.
exactly he's not those guys. So I if I'm picking one guy to slide, that would surprise everyone. It would actually
It'd
be
be an
Hutch.
interesting slide, but yeah, I could totally see him getting past Detroit, which would obviously be kind of send shockwaves to the official narrative of the draft. Um,
I think Dan Campbell. I don't know if he's just saying he loves this guy, so it'll distract him, and he can take Thibodeau, for example, for whatever. But I think Hutchinson is like everyone wants this to be the case. The existing relationships and Michigan guy and everything, and he's from Michigan, like just everything. Although I heard a rumor that he didn't really like the Lions, which would
Okay.
make sense.
Oh,
Being a
it's
20 being a 21-year-old from Michigan, I can see like yeah, like there's been no reason to like the Lions for 21 years. So it's kind of tough.
good point.
But, if
It
there were
kind of
going
reminds me of Sam Hubbard,
yeah,
the defensive lineman for
there you
the
go.
Bengals.
That's
Like
his
somebody
comp.
who, yeah,
I think that's his guy.
which is a great player to have. Sam Hubbard's a great player in the Bengals. He was a key contributor on a Super Bowl team. But yeah, anyway, is he 1.1?
Right.
Somebody you trade up for? I could see it, but yeah, I could also see it going the other way.
Let's see, any other picks that kind of stand out, like exciting picks? Like I'd be pumped if I were Jacksonville coming out of this. I really love this draft. Just like big, like here we go. We're rolling this offense. They ended up trading both times, two trades. So it's
So I remembered it earlier, but I forget that Doug Peterson, made a comment that I thought was telling. He said that you always want offensive linemen. He said for them to pick an offensive lineman at that point, it would have to be somebody with something special, um, and like something that not everybody has. And obviously Evan Neal has the size, but Ikwonu I just think has kind of the physicality, the kind of like he has the prototype size, or plenty of size, length, and athleticism, but also I think just finishes and fights, and I think that uh, yeah, I just when I heard him say that, I was like, I think this is the player he's thinking of
yeah,
when he said that.
and like if they do move him inside to guard because of where the team needs are right now, they picked up Walker Little early, with the I think first pick of the second round last year. And they have another guy that's even ahead of him, and they've got Camera. Like you can easily slide Ikwonu into guard and hope that he's Quentin Nelson, like because run blocking wise, the trajectory is there that he might just be that mauler, like that guy that's just gonna run people over, just roll his hips into the blocks and just pound those guys. I don't know.
I like Charles Cross and the Giants. We were talking about the wide receiver screen type game plan. Brian Dable bringing kind of like some of these quick passes, line of scrimmage. He's like a really athletic offensive lineman, but also that came from a short passing game. Very passing game offense, NC State, and so he's a player that can really get out to the outside and get the lead blocks on those screens to the outside, for example. So I do think that player and team is a good fit. Maybe better, with that, flip it around and pick him at number 7. But like you said or alluded to, and a lot of people feel that might be high for a player that you're kind of just projecting his ability in the run game.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Who's the guy that you want to look out for the most? Who's your draft darling?
I mentioned, so of course, full disclosure, Richard and I play in a keeper fantasy football league, so it hurts me to
Oh,
all my thoughts.
well, those are all the offensive players, though.
Well, IDPs,
Yeah, that's true.
but
That's true.
no, I mean, so I'm really excited about speaking of fantasy relevant players about Jahan Dotson. He's a
Yeah,
player that I really like. When the ball's in the air, especially.
that grab, just like on the sideline, and just
Yeah,
snagged
exactly.
it up.
Mentioned Thibodeau. I mean, as far as the explosion at the top, um,
This is
Johnson.
this is my guy, and I think it kind of showed because it's I'm not gonna say it's a reach. It's only one tier down, and it's just that spot. But I think Nakobe Dean could become Telvin Smith like, Deion Jones like, and just be a side to side. Maybe I don't want to say Michael Parsons. I don't think he's got that step that Parsons has, but But if there's a player that comes close to offering that, I think it's going to be him. What the way he played in the championship game. Like that being said, this Georgia defense is well represented on this list, right? And your job becomes pretty easy when it's just you chasing down the ball carrier because every other hole is filled, and that kind of just became his job in the championship game. Was just blow it up, find it, blow it up, find it, blow it up, because all the other guys were accounted for, but accounted for with multiple offensive players. So but that's the most recent tape on Nakobe Dean is this guy just blew every play up side to side. Runners didn't get past the line of scrimmage. He beat them there. So I'm really interested to see him turn in.
Devin Lloyd both were super productive. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
interceptions, sacks, tackles for loss. They filling up the stat sheets. Both of those guys.
yeah. It's
But the team
interesting.
being
I like this draft more than I liked last year's. Just it's last year's was just so much about five quarterbacks, and it was all like figuring out that puzzle piece, and then everyone else, and then everyone else. Whereas this year, it's just like, all right, quarterbacks will go to the teams that are willing to like play and build and do whatever with them. But I like drafts that aren't 1, 2, 3 quarterback. I mean, not that that's ever happened before, but just that changes everything. It's much more interesting to see like who's going to be the number one pick. We don't know. Whereas last year, like 4 years ago, we knew that Trevor Lawrence was going to be the number one pick in the 2021 draft. And then
did.
Zach Wilson, like the Jets came out very, very early. By February, we knew that Zach Wilson was going too. And then it was this whole thing, did the Niners trade up to 3 thinking Mac Jones and then fall in love with the darling and saying like, oh, we can develop this guy and then running zone run scheme and we can do all sorts of things with him. And
That was
then
an
if,
interesting question in last year's draft. Is like, did they actually make the move that they intended to make when they made the trade? Getting Trey
oh
Lance. Like, did they change their mind?
yeah, I'm sure that if they went back and saw that their number 12 pick could have gotten Mac Jones,
Hard not to do
like
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard not to want to backpedal on that, but we'll see. I mean, the 49ers are going to be really freaking good this year, I think. It'll be
Hey, well, if they don't blow it and trade Debo Samuel, um,
hey, man,
I
that
think that
whole
they don't want to pay him, but honestly, it's like going back to their Super Bowl. I think he's the skeleton key to Kyle Shanahan's offense. I think when they run the offense through him, they can go toe to toe with the best teams in the league with the Rams like they did in the their must win game at the end of the season and the playoffs.
right.
But he's had some soft tissue injury availability. He's not a classic wide receiver one, all these things. But I'll be very disappointed in San Francisco if they don't pony up and pay the guy that I think should be the centerpiece of their offense.
Well, at this point, like they might be saying they don't want to pay him, but you've shipped away multiple first round picks. Like, what who are you going to spend it on? Like, this is your team. You're not acquiring another first round pick until 2024. You don't have another second round pick
That's fair.
until 2024. Like, it's why not pay the guys you have now? You're going to get picks in 2024 and 2025. That's where you're going to have to like start thinking about it. Like, it feels like they should have the resources to pay the guys. Nick Bosa notwithstanding. But they're shedding the Garoppolo contract. They really, it feels like they should have enough money to go around.
Good point.
But it'll be interesting, and certainly like I said, they're not spending on anyone else next year, so that's it. They just don't have more picks. I think they're built to win, though. I think they can be really, really good. All right, man. I'm gonna let you go. This was a lot of fun. I,
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for inviting me on.
yeah, I appreciate you coming and giving your insights, and I love how this shapes up. We'll last year I went a week later and kind of went through and be like, all right, where can we find these like value tweaks? It might be interesting to see, what narratives come out. I really want to see Tibbs. So N'Kobe Dean I love, but I want to find out where Thibodeau is, and where these coaches find this guy. Because, like I said, what I want, especially that comment of like, I don't understand why why I'm not just the shoe-in number one pick. And that
Yeah.
could be just because he heard 13 months ago that he would be the number one pick, right? But
Or could it be
if he's just like
his
I am
best
that
fit?
good, and then if he drops even a little bit, you better believe that every time that he plays against the teams that pass on him, I feel like he's the type of guy that'll be like, I'm coming for you.
Could be
it
exciting to see.
it'll be really exciting. All right, I'll catch you next time. Keep
Go
it
man.
surreal.
All right, peace.
Peace.